Bizarre Brain Comics. Your very pulpy hero, the Mask of Mystery. Let's get that off. Didn't know it was me, did you? There we go. Now I can see something. Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. And this is where I normally take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. Well, this time we're taking a look at a very, very pulpy type character. Hence the goofy mask, the hat, and the cheap cape. I can't pick it up. This character goes way back, way back. And we're going to take a look here in this issue of DC's Secret Origins #5, starring the Crimson Avenger. Ooh. And this is Secret Origins. This is his origin. So let's see what the Big Book of Knowledge has to say about the Crimson. DC Comics Secret Origins #5, 1986. The Crimson Avenger. Written by Roy and Dan Thomas, and drawn by Gene Colan, with Mike Gustovich doing the inks. Okay, and the character, the Crimson Avenger. The Crimson Avenger is the name of 3 separate superheroes and villains in DC Comics. And the 2 newer ones I'm completely unfamiliar with. And the character debuted in 1938 and is notable for being the first masked hero in DC Comics. He predated Batman by about a year and came just about 3 months after Superman. But Superman didn't wear a mask. Then the first Crimson Avenger was Lee Walker Travis, and that's who we're talking about. And he first appeared in Detective Comics #20, October 1938. And he is a founding member of the 7 Soldiers of Victory. And Captain Avenger and Wing, his trusty Chinese valet/chauffeur, was a ripoff of Radio's The Green Hornet, down to the gas gun used to knock out his opponents. He was dressed in a dark hat and suit with a red mask and a cloak. It's a red mask and cloak. After a few years, he changed to a typical comic book hero, typical comic book, wearing a red form-fitting costume with trunks, abandoning the typical pulp hero outfit like Green Hornet, the Shadow, and the Spider. And I like all of those. And as I said, this was drawn by Gene Colan. I've mentioned him several times. I did do a little brief bio of him once before, but I'm do it again here. Gene Colan. He was born Eugene Colan. That's Colan. From 1926 to 2011. And he's born in the Bronx, strongly influenced by the Dickie Dare comic strip and Norman Rockwell covers, as well as Milton Caniff, that's from Terry and the Pirates. And he studied at the Art Students League of New York. He began working in comics in 1944 for Fiction House, doing Wings comics, before entering the service in the Army Air Corps. And he served in the Philippines. Back in civilian life, in 1946, he went to work at Timely Comics, later Marvel. And his first cover illustration was for Captain America comics, and way back then. And after a layoff at Timely in about 48, he did work for National, later DC, doing war comics, and later in the 50s on Hopalong Cassidy. I've never seen any of his Hoppy. And in the Silver Age, or at Silver Age Marvel, he did superheroes, but is best known for his supernatural / horror work on stuff like Doctor Strange and Tomb of Dracula, and also onto more hard-boiled detective type stuff. We'll cover him again when I get to the. I forgot the name of it now. When he did some private detectives, and that was good stuff. Oh, I didn't finish him. Or did I? Yes, I did. Anyway, Gene Colan, some great, dark, mysterious things. And this is a really good story. So let's go back to the 1930s for adventure with the Crimson Avenger. Yes, the Crimson Avenger. And take another look at that great Gene Colan cover here for Secret Origins. Now the Crimson Avenger was, in the old days, was only published in solo stories in Detective Comics for just a few years. It was back up from, I guess he only had appeared on one cover. And as I said, eventually he changed into the form-fitting tights and stuff, which is kind of dumb. But then he only made an occasional pop-up appearance. But then they did this this in Secret Origins. And then a couple years later, he had a 4-issue miniseries. Look at that. That's very Shadow-esque there, for that ghostly image. But this was his first appearance was, as I said, was October 1938. Well, cover dated was October. Issue would actually hit the stands 2 or 3 months earlier than that. But when Roy and Dan Thomas were writing this, they took that as a lead and put that into their story. Now, you may not be familiar with October 1938. The actual story takes place on Sunday, October 30th, 1938. And that date has some historical significance, because that is the date of the broadcast of Orson Welles' Mercury Theater on the Air presentation of the War of the Worlds, and that makes is a significant part of the plot in this story. See, because when the Avenger first appeared, the Crimson Avenger first appeared, they never really gave him an origin. So they present it here, and make it the time that the book actually took place, and all that history. Now it's kind of it is playing into some of the mythology about the War of the Worlds radio show. Very few people were actually fooled by it. There was no big panic about a Martian invasion and that stuff. That's hokum. But he plays into that. Makes it good. So we'll take a little look here. Splash page. Crimson Avenger with his gas gun. You know, and his brand of justice shrouding the entire city. Ooh, ooh. And of course, the city's New York. Gene Colan. And it starts off simply enough with the guy, Lee Travis, shaving Sunday morning. And he's a businessman, dude. And even though it's Sunday, he has to go into the office for something. He happens to be the publisher and editor of a big metropolitan newspaper, just like Britt Reed from the Green Hornet. And he's driving in, got a chauffeur here, Wing. And they're talking about the war brewing in Europe and in the Japanese being taking over China, and so they're talking a little bit about that stuff because that plays a part. See, and this is the kind of stuff he really excelled at. He just made it look the time. And see, turns out that the Japanese have just taken over Wing's home city, where he originally came from. So they get to the office, and he's telling the boss how really need to do something to help publish in his publishing. And he says, well, this is because he was Travis was commenting on how great these headlines were. And he's missing the point and making it sound like the bad news is great when the bad news isn't great. The headlines of the bad news is great for his business, and he really wants to make some changes. And here he is in his office, doing his stuff, and this lady reporter from a magazine comes to do a brief interview with him, and they're talking because this gives you some of Travis's background, and she's kind of a tough cookie, this lady, and he goes back how he had with the depression, coming of the depression. His family still felt the pinch, even though he was from a fairly wealthy family, and but they didn't know if they'd be able to afford to send him off to school, as if that was really the major thing from the 30s. But he had a wealthy benefactor, a friend, a guy who had previously owned the newspaper that he runs now. And he was a benefactor. He took him under his wing and sent him to school to become a journalist, which is what he wanted. But he got caught up in the hullabaloo going on in Europe, and he did some training and volunteered to go to Spain to fight the fascists in Spain in the Spanish Civil War, which many Americans did, and Brits and Australians and Kiwis from New Zealand, people like Errol Flynn, yeah, from the movies. He fought in the Spanish Civil War, and but he was only there for a few days, and he got wounded and had to come back home. But still, then he finished his studies. Then his benefactor passed away and left everything, the newspaper, to him. So here he's taken over the newspaper, and so he acknowledges, yes, I've had virtually everything handed to me on a silver plate. And I'm trying to give back the best I can by being a newspaper reporter. And this lady, she's real hard nut. She thinks he's just a spoiled brat, which largely he is. And takes notice that she lights her cigarettes with a gold cigarette lighter. And he makes a comment of it. And said, yeah. Now they're done with the interview. Oh, and this kind of is reminiscent of the, because it's the Globe Leader, but it's reminiscent of the Daily Planet there. And they comment about, oh, they got that fundraiser for tonight. It's a masquerade ball for Halloween. Oh yeah, he forgot about that. He's planning on going. Maybe we'll meet you there. And he calls the secretary and asks her, oh, I forgot, I got to get a costume. And she says, already taken care of. Here's the costume here. And then she leaves. And he picks it up, and it's called Highway Robber. And he dons it. It's just, he had no idea what it was. It's just a slouch hat, a red cloak, and a red mask. He thinks, oh well. Then he goes out to the car with Wing, his chauffeur. Wing driving him on. Says, oh. They're talking and talking. More stuff about war scare and stuff. And they said, I'm supposed to be a highway robber. I forgot to include a gun with this mask. I said, oh, that's okay. Here, boss. Use mine. He happens to have a 45 right there in the car with him. Because you never can tell. So he unloads it and hands it to him. Of course, it's just supposed to be a prop. And they're crossing the bridge. And that's a cool view of the bridge. I like how, because you can see how it goes, rises up and humps there, because those kind of bridges do that. And just great. I mean, just the way he does the talking heads isn't dull or boring at all. Comes to the estate of blah blah blah. Gold Gilder, whatever the hell his name is. And the other walking around in all the costumes and stuff, and talks to the hostess. She doesn't know who he is because he's masked. And says, "Oh, please." And they're talking about, because this is for benefits for relief for the Chinese from the Japanese invasion. So people are donating money left and right. And he says, and who are you? And says, who did you say you were? Said, I didn't. And that's as close as he came to, because he was just trying to be mysterious. And then this lady comes out and says, help! She's screaming, help! The Martians have landed! And so this really paces the story, because it's an hour-long program with the War of the Worlds. And the rest of this story takes place during the radio show of the War of the Worlds. And they're talking about, what, are you crazy? Well, that's odd. And then they realize that, no, it's all fake. See, the other stations aren't having the regular programming. And the lady who was the reporter, she's there too. And she's the only one who actually recognized him for who he was. And she said, besides, it's not, that's Orson Welles' voice. And I just talked with him the other day, did a little report on him the other day, and he was saying how he was doing War of the Worlds. So that's just it. It's just a radio show. Okay. And if you ever listen to that, you can't possibly go more than just a few minutes without realizing that it's not a real news broadcast, because that part only lasts about 15 minutes. Anyway, but it gives the actual, in the course of it, the actual dialogue from the show. And I'll mention that when I come back. And here comes, the guard come around. The Martians have landed. The Martians are heading this way. No, it's fake. We already know about the radio show, but whoosh! Suddenly he's engulfed in flames. And Travis pushes him into the pool to douse the flames. And here come the Martians. What the heck? Oh, no, they're not real Martians, especially when the host goes to challenge them, and they just blow him away. Machine gun fire. That settles that. They're just robbers, and they're using the costumes and stuff as a gimmick. So while that's going on, everyone put your valuables here. He drops the gun, even though it's not loaded. And the girl, she lights up a cigarette, and they snatch her cigarette lighter because it's gold plated, and that really ticks her off. And she challenges him, goes to assault him, and he just accidentally fires a burst right into her. Oh my gosh. And that really pisses the guy off. He rips his mask off and says, "Okay, everybody, enough of this. Just cooperate if no one else wants to die." And while Travis is comforting the lady, she says, "Qui findicit ibiti." And that's Latin, and I'm probably not saying it anywhere near correctly. So they get the loot, they take off. Well, Travis, he's really ticked off now. He runs out to his car with Wing, and they take off to follow him. And said, "Too bad that I don't have that gun." He said, "Oh, it's okay, boss. I got another one." He had another one there. Now this is where it really gets interesting, because the gangsters, they're trying to use the stuff on the radio show to mask their getaway, because they want to go to the areas where they think Martian stuff is going on. So, or people might think Martian stuff is going on. So they have the car radio turned to that. So here's where we keep hearing the dialogue from the radio show. Direct lines from the show. "The monster is now in control of the middle sect of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through its center." And then here we see the radio station. Orson Welles. Well, that's being delivered. And then we get little glimpses here of people who are frightened, like a lady about to commit suicide because of the Martians. And her husband stops her, says, "No, it's all fake." And here we see the cast again. Meanwhile, got the chase. They're shooting at Travis's car, but the previous owner had been kind of paranoid, and and his vehicle had been bulletproofed, so they're safe. Then they shoot, blast at it with the flamethrower that they used on the guard. So they swerve. Travis has a few good shots, hits the tank, and the guy goes falling off, engulfed in flames because of the tank exploding on him. Now they're chasing the bad guys, and again more bits from the radio, and they go over the edge of an embankment, and then the guys get out and they take off. Well, Travis comes along, racing after him, beating the crap out of this guy, and going after the other one, beating the crap out of him, and he falls. Help! He falls off of this bridge. Meanwhile, one of the other guards, he attacks Wing. Well, Wing's no slouch, and Wing takes care of him. But one of the other guys' villains have recovered, holds him with a gun, until kablooey! What the heck? This is the farmer on whose property they're fighting, and he blasts the guy with a shotgun. Says, "Oh, well, must be Martians. I heard about the Martian invasion." And said, "No, that's a fake. He goes through the loot, grabs the lady's cigarette lighter, and then sees that it's something that had been a gift. It's engraved, and it has that Latin phrase on it that he said. And what did it mean? Is, wait, here's an inscription, and it has what she said, and it means the Avenger will come. And that has a big impression on him. He and Wing take off. They don't want to get involved in the cops, and there we are, Orson Welles, and again on the radio at the end. And that is the conclusion of the origin of the Crimson Avenger. And here is a reproduction of the one issue of Detective Comics that had the Crimson Avenger on the cover. And that's cool. That is, see, it's very pulpy. I really like that story. And of course, the great Gene Colan art. And I would like to have seen more of that kind of stuff. Because I like the very pulpiness of it. Even though it's a direct swipe from the Green Hornet. But that's all I've got on that. As I said, it had a 4-issue miniseries a couple years later, and to my knowledge, that's, except for an occasional pop-up once in a while, that's basically it. Would have been kind of nice to have had an ongoing series of this title, especially if it could have been someone like Gene Colan or someone comparable doing the artwork, because it suits that so well. And thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and remember, comics